Hello and welcome back to Far Beyond the World. We'll be continuing where we left off, which, if you recall, is after um, Ranok and Caelan basically made it out of the forest, finally. And things were still pretty much tense right up until they met a new tiger, or a new character who happened to be a tiger, who happened to be a farmer, who brought Caelan and Ranok into his home very graciously, and was very hospitable, and it was a little tense at first because Ranok clearly did not want to be there, either because he's being kind of his usual xenophobic self that most wolves are in this story, or just because he didn't want to, be dealing with anyone at the moment. But it turned very amicable, and, they had a nice little conversation about, the war basically hurting more than just the wolves and the people involved. It also hurt all the people that were not directly involved, such as the farmer's family and all the other the surrounding area. Basically, what it was supposed to be farmland is basically in ruins right now because of the war. But yeah, and there was a little scene that could have been better, where when Ranok presents the tiger with money, he kind of forces the tiger to take the money, but it would have been, one of my friends was saying that it would have been slightly better if the tiger had just flat out refused, because it would have challenged Ranok's, little world view that you can't just fix everything by throwing money at it. Which kind of seems to be something that Ranok does, not just throw money at it. I mean, like, sort of, your worldview is not the only one that matters, Ranok. So, sure, you want to be nice and give the guy money because, he offered you hospitality, but he wasn't doing it for money, as the tiger said. He was doing it just because, it's the nice and hospitable thing to do. But yeah, I would welcome challenges to Ranok's worldview, but I don't think that the writer will do that, because it seems like the story has sort of shifted from it being one of where Caelan sort of causes Ranok to again challenge his worldview of how things are in the real world, to sort of reinforcing it for Ranok instead, which seems really weird. But who knows what the ultimate end game is, with this story. But anyways, well, let's continue and see what happens as they, enter Strandbard and, go into a multicultural, multi-kin environment. As we pass the gate, we're greeted with a small square. The 3 streets open onto it, pouring out various kins rushing in the late hours of the day. But before I can take all of this in, my eyes venture to Ranok. He's clearly unhappy with the warm greeting we've received, and I place my hand on his tense shoulder. You can't really blame them. You've heard from the farmer and now the guards. There are wolves running rampant throughout their countryside. Not our wolves, that's for sure. He brushes my hand off, and I simply shake my head. It doesn't matter. They're all scared, and they've got good reason to. Imagine if what happened in the Northern Groves happened here. I don't think that we would even be admitted. I try to laugh it off, but he's buried too deep in his thoughts. He feels dejected and almost defeated, and for a moment, I forget about our ongoing spat. Whatever's the matter? I feel useless. I can't speak with them. You keep prattling on while I just stood there like an idiot. My smile widens with each of his words, to the wolf's annoyance. It's not funny. I mean, it kind of is. You must admit it's a little bit ironic. How so? Our roles reversed. I shrug teasingly, but he doesn't take kindly to it. It's not the same. You speak Wolven. I do, but I can't. Same result. I mean, you do understand what's being said, don't you? Yes, of course I do. He sneers. It's just, when it comes to uttering the words, it's hard to find the right ones. I never really spoke the language other than learning how to read. Most books, after all, are written in Taigiri. See, it's the same thing. I had to spend all that time knowing what's being said without being able to speak up. Ugh. He groans heavily and speeds up his pace, clearly losing patience with the conversation. In truth, I'm not that interested in dragging this further either, so I simply drop it. The short-lived amusement of the situation quickly loses its appeal, and I shift my attention to admiring the new setting. At first, the city seems an extension of the depressing countryside, drabby, dreary-looking houses stretching forward from the gate and crowding the poorly cobbled road on either side. There's an improvised gutter running through the middle of the street, guiding the slushing mud and rainwater down towards the moat as the city steadily climbs upwards. Although more diverse than in Turnen, the citizenry looks as tired and downcast as I am, scurrying about their business in the persisting rain, their clothes stained with mud at the edges. Despite the farmers' earlier enthusiasm, I met here with an air of clear indifference. There are some curious passing glances, but on the whole, I'm just treated as another kin rushing through the street. The tigers are a clear majority here, but I can spot an odd lion or an otter, which is mind-blowing to say the least. I expected to be gawked at, but instead, I'm the one doing the gawking. There's even an occasional wolf sporting a curious tattoo underneath the left eye. In fact, as we continue towards the city center, I count 3 more, all giving us rather suspicious and almost hostile gazes. And each of them with the same symbol on their left cheek, an upward-facing crescent with a droplet beneath it. What's that about? I break our silence, nodding subtly to yet another wolf standing underneath an archway. They all have the same tattoo. It's not a tattoo, Ranok responds solemnly. It's a brand, a weeping moon, a mark of a banished wolf. All wolves here were banished? Not all, but most. He concedes through a heavy sigh. Some left Turnen on their own accord, but those who were forced out got branded. That's horrible. I blurt out in clear disgust, but he only gives me this telltale patronizing look. There are 6 tribes, most of them having very little control over the outer packs. A banished wolf with little importance could simply avoid punishment by sneaking into another tribe, with us none the wiser. This way, we know who broke our laws and cannot be trusted. I still think it's a bit extreme. I continue, unconvinced by his explanation seemingly taken straight out of the Scarlet Letter. Branding people? That's just barbarity. Thankfully, that's no longer your burden to carry. Ranok issues another, this time exasperated sigh and looks to me sternly, pulling on my arm. I know you have a penchant for seeking out trouble, but do not trifle with any of those wolves. I try to flinch away, but he only tightens his grip. I am serious. We do not banish our own lightly. Most of those wolves committed a heinous crime or a sacrilege. Or were found out to bed other males. I throw in harshly, finally pulling my arm free from his paw. At first, he's taken aback by my defiance, but quickly renews his hold. Trust me, you can be snide all you want, but far more wolves were banished for murder or thievery than for buggering another male. Tano was caught red-pawed and even admitted to the whole thing, that he still remains within the tribe. As a laughingstock, I give him a challenging gaze, and then look back at his paw, still very much tightening around my wrist. Reluctantly, he lets go, either to avoid causing a scene as some passerby started paying attention to our increasingly heated exchange, or because he realizes that he begins to cross some boundaries. You're just like him, stubborn and always acting like you know best. I decide to ignore that. You all keep saying how being defective could end up in banishment. Only if you're unapologetic about it. My eyes shoot wide open. There's nothing to be apologetic about. There is if you stubbornly and selfishly put your own whim and desires ahead of the needs of your people. He cuts me off coldly. Each of us has our place and our role to play. You, of all people, said you understood that. I guess that was a lie. No, it wasn't, but this... Seriously, I do not want to talk about things you clearly do not understand. He brushes his paw at me in dismissal. Chalk us up to savage primitives if you must. I don't care. But if you have any wits about you, you will stay away from the Weeping Moon. Those wolves will hurt you, especially if they learn where you come from and how privileged your position has been. Privileged? I nearly choke at this somewhat inappropriate assessment, but yet again, my indignation is met with his indifference. Yes, privileged. The wolf states coldly. In case you forgot, you are an otherkin who broke our sacred laws and encroached on our lands. Many were killed for less. Those who were banished by their own kin certainly could see it as an insult. You think Aldris was out to get you? He asks with a slight tone of mockery in his voice. To her, you were just a pawn to use against my father. To them, this would be personal. In fact, some might even think that they could redeem themselves if they only got to bring your little pink head back to their respective chiefs. I swallow heavily at his final words, almost thrown at me with his last strength to maintain composure. His chest is rattled, and he breathes heavily. I can see he's upset. He worries. He might mask it behind an outburst, because that's the only way to move forward without further heartbreak. He wants me to hate him. It would be easier for him if I did. I lock my eyes with his tucked tail, which completely derails his feigned angered stance, and I nod softly. Okay. I will stay clear of the weeping moon, I promise. I try to keep my voice from quivering, as this realization shifted my anger towards sadness and despair. I really don't want to stay here on my own, but his mind seems to be made up. We continue our journey into the city in silence, and the deeper we get, the nicer the surroundings. The houses up ahead begin to shift into a more pleasant type, well-built, tall stone structures with decorative colonnades and terraces. But to my surprise, we take a sharp turn into one of the alleyways, which compared even to the first leg of the main street, looks off-putting. It's dark and unpaved, with overhanging upper floors nearly touching in the center, creating a very foreboding tunnel. The moisture leaks down the walls and gathers on the road, meaning that we're now trudging through mud with my boots drawing an audible pop whenever I pull them out of the muck. Why are we here? I thought we would stay at the famous inn. I mutter, not really sure where he's taking us. The Stranded Bard is not a place you simply get into. Unless you are a famous bard, a prominent patron, or one of their regulars. That inn is off limits. So we'll be staying in a slum? It's not a slum. This place was recommended to me by Vitrir. He and a few others stayed here each time they visited. When was that? A whole generation ago? I scoff, having to dislodge my left foot from the sludge by hand. Seriously, it looks bad because of the weather. I give him a challenging stare. This place wouldn't look appealing even if you'd give it a paint job. Stop your complaining. We're here. Ranok points to a sign slowly bobbing on the wind. The Broken Keg. Despite my misgivings about the place, the sound of revelry taking place inside is quite reassuring, and the golden glow of the lights flooding the street from the window is very inviting. I guess it could work. I shrug and allow the wolf to lead us inside. At first, we're met with the typical Western greeting, a silence falling over the gathered and every eye locks on us. There's even an odd cough coming from the back of the room. But within seconds, the patrons return to their merriment, and the hall's filled with the clanking of mugs and cheers yet again. Ah, Master Wolf! A short yet stout tiger rushes to greet us, bowing gracefully in front of Ranok. Forgive us our wariness. We don't allow the disgraced ones in this locale. Disgraced ones? I find myself asking in confusion. The ones with the marking. They're no good troublemakers, the lot of them. But you're more than welcome. Please, come, come. He bids us to follow, and Ranok shrugs. We approach the bar and I look around. It's a cramped establishment and quite worn down, but the customers don't seem to mind. There's a group of lions and leopards playing dice at the center table, to the utter amusement of the gathered, while on the sides I can spot odd pairs of various canines, cats, and even a boar. Utterly bizarre. So, what can I do you for? Meal, beer, and room. Ah, a full service. The barkeep rubs his paws excitedly. We are quite full, you know. Might be hard to squeeze you in. Ranok pulls out a silver coin from his pouch and plops it on the counter. Well, there's also 2 of you. Had it been just 1... With an exasperated sigh, the wolf adds yet another. I suppose you'll also want a bath with this mud in. Ranok slams his paw on the counter, drawing the attention of a few nearby customers, only to reveal a 3rd coin. Take it, or we leave. You know what? I'm sure something can be arranged. Sylph? He snaps his fingers at one of the bunny waitresses. Yeah, boss? Could you help these 2 to one of our premium bedrooms? Sure thing, boss. The girl rushes to our side and extends her paw towards me. Let me help you with that, sugar. Oh, sure. I take off the backpack and pass it to her, drawing a loud groan from the bunny. Ooh, boy, did you stuff a whole pig in there? Ease. Do you need help with that? The barkeep points towards a chest on Ranok's shoulder, to which the wolf shifts away. No, me good. Very well. The tiger raises his paws in defeat. Off you go. Sylph will take good care of you. And Sylph? Yeah, boss? Prepare a bath for our guests while I get their refreshments ready. Sure thing, boss. The bunny rushes off, grabbing one of the several candle holders on a shelf next to the hallway, and we follow. After scaling a rickety flight of stairs, we end up at a dilapidated and dark corridor stretching the entire length of the building. There's only one small window at the very end overlooking a narrow space between the inn and the next building, giving in effect as much light as a door gap would. It's awfully dark. Don't worry, I know my way around. The girl responds cheerily and then continues on while I struggle to find my footing, especially in my dirty, makeshift shoes. Every now and then, a bout of cheer and laughs echoes from beneath the wooden panels and rushes up the stairs behind us. Eventually, we come to a stop in front of the second to the last doorway, when the female bunny begins to rummage around her waist. An iron ring of keys jiggles merrily as she shuffles through them. Nope, nope, not that one. Not that one either. Oop, here we are. She shoves the key into the door, and the lock opens with a satisfying click. Once the doors are thrown ajar, she leads us in and drops the backpack to the ground. The room is spacious enough, but old, with evident wear and tear and very little care given to its maintenance. And of course, there's only one double bed. The girl begins to light up the candles in the room, using hers as a source of fire, bringing some life into this otherwise unwelcoming place. When she's done, she leaves the candle holder on a cupboard and disappears, only to return momentarily with a shovel filled with burning coals. She deposits them into the 2 braziers standing on each side of the room, and they immediately begin to radiate warmth. I place myself next to one of them to dry off and soak some of that heat when the girl nods towards a large wooden bath next to the window. I'll get the water ready. Shouldn't be too long. Would you like me to brew you some tisane while you wait? Tisane? We have chamomile, nettle, hyacinth, or lavender. Oh, you mean herbal tea? No such luck, I'm afraid. We're not fine enough an establishment to carry tea, but the tisane should help you warm up just the same. Sure. What would you suggest? As I see, you're pretty cold. Nettle and hyacinth should put life into your step. It also stimulates appetite, while the other 2 would put you right to bed. Nettle and hyacinth it is, then. I'll get that right up. She wastes no time and closes the door behind her while I give Ranok a rather uncomfortable look. What? This place is... interesting. It's fine by me. It's a shack, and I'm saying that after staying in a forest cabin. Is it not rising to my lord's expectations? A muffled groan escapes my lips, but before I can quip back, my attention is taken elsewhere. I look towards the left wall as I hear the squeaking of the nearby bed and an unapologetic moaning of a couple in quite the spirited throes of passion, judging by the occasional lustful growls issued by the male. The rhythmic thumping doesn't leave much to the imagination. He's banging the female like one would be hammering a stubborn nail that refuses to give in. To my surprise, I'm much less fazed by this than Ranok is. The wolf is visibly getting uncomfortable and flushed, deciding to distract himself by needlessly rummaging through our luggage. At least one couple here is having fun. I decide to comment at a rather comical high-pitched squeal from the skewered lady. Stop it, he demands, thumping his tail anxiously against the floor. I'm just saying. Doesn't seem like they're having a bad time. It comes with the territory. Inns like this inevitably invite a more rowdy clientele. There's a loud tumble coming from the next room, suggesting a rather rough change of position, followed by an increased pounding of flesh against the wooden floor. Even the planks in our room began to dance to the rhythm. They're rowdy, all right. I mumble awkwardly, unable to resist my straying thoughts from conjuring an image of Ranok on me engaging in an equally lustful union. I can only assume he's doing the same, as the wolf just squats there, looking at the backpack with his back turned towards me. He doesn't bother to pretend to be even looking for something anymore. I think he's simply hiding a throbbing erection, which is exactly what I decide to do by sitting on the opposite side of the bed with my legs tightly crossed. We stay like this, frozen in time for what feels like an eternity of sexual torture, listening to the crescendo of moans and huffs until inevitably, with the ever-increasing tempo, the couple next door arrives at the glorious conclusion. The female issues a moan of satisfaction, drowned out only by the throaty roar of what I assume to be a large feline counterpart. After that, dead silence, only disturbed by their strained gasps for air and occasional cheer echoing from the hall beneath. We dare not to move, nor to look at each other. We just sit and stare blankly into the distance while the couple next door tidies up and eventually leaves the room to join the revelry downstairs. Finally, our door cracks open and the bunny enters with a folded linen cloth in one paw and a copper pot in the other. She places the pot onto the brazier, allowing it to retain its heat while she starts to unfurl the cloth over the bath. She's lining it diligently, but eventually stops and looks at us, two frozen statues, giving either a confused gaze. Something the matter, my sweets? Oh, Rana clears his throat, and I blink back to life. No, all good. Thoughts far away. Or, in this case, a room away. Right. Me and the girls will bring up the water. Do you like your bath hot or tepid? Ranok looks back at me, and I shrug. Hot would be nice, not too hot though. As he say. The wolf nods and the female rushes towards the doors, stopping briefly. Do you want any oils or petals? We have dried spring flowers, and I think there should be a vial of rose essence somewhere. We know girls. Ranok's tone takes on a scornful note, but I decide a little indulgence wouldn't hurt. I might be a girl then, because to me, that sounds lovely. The bunny gives Ranok another look, seeking affirmation as he's the paying customer after all, and the wolf concedes with a reluctant nod. Once she leaves and the door closes, he gives me a taunting stink eye. First scented soap, now this? We've been 4 days on the road, most of today wading through mud. I'd like to rest up. I mutter defensively, drawing a sigh of frustration from the wolf. Fine. What does it matter when you're clearly going to be the biggest flower in the bath? The serving girls, 6 in total, enter the room in a long continuous chain, each carrying a steaming bucket and carefully emptying it into the bath, after which, one after the other, they rush downstairs to start the process anew. We observe in silence, slightly inconvenienced by this constant stream of strangers entering and exiting, but after 3 rounds, the bath is ready. Sylph is preparing the water's surface with dried florets, and with a gentle dab adding a dash of the fragrant oil here and there. The room gets quite pleasantly steamy, with a hint of rose in the air, and once all is prepared and ready, the bunny gestures towards the bath. Thank you. I've left warm towels next to the brazier. They should hold for a while, but I wouldn't tarry. Of course. I nod, and with that, she bobs her head merrily and leaves the room. We stand there, both crossed-armed and darting our gazes between each other and the steaming bath. So, how should we do this? As before, you need to go first. I leave plenty of fur behind. Won't they change the water? That would be pretty extravagant. But it will get dirty. Not if you scrub excess dirt before you enter. The wolf scoffs in this obvious tone of his, and I shake my head in mild amusement. I begin to undress nonchalantly, despite the awkwardness of our still ongoing disagreement. Ranok, aware of how inappropriate the situation is, decides to avert his gaze, but his ears and tail remain perked up and alert, almost as if he was stalking prey. I decide to indulge my ego a little bit and slow down the pace, almost trying to be seductive, yet remaining within proper boundaries. He can't help himself, and I notice less than discreet glances directed at me whenever a piece of garment flops to the floor. Finally, I allow the loincloth to unmake itself and fall freely as I take careful steps towards the bath. I check the water with my hand, and it's wonderful. Hot enough to sting at first, but not enough to burn. The howling of the wind outside, abated by the whistling of our window, serves as enough of an invitation to hop in. I climb over the side, first dipping my toes to adjust to the new temperature. Knowing there is no easier way to do this, I simply step in, standing in hot water up to my knees. Fuck, it's hot! I yelp, jumping from one foot to the other and drawing Ranok's attention, who now completely embarrassed is looking directly at my dangling family jewels. He leaps back, almost as if it was him dunking into this boiling vat, stumbling to the floor and frantically shielding his gaze, while I, the idiot that I am, decide to dive down to cover myself. Boiling eggs and stewed ham. That's how I can describe the first few seconds of that experience. Thankfully, to distract me from the burning sting, I have a front view of a shamed Ranok scrambling back to his feet, sitting on the bed with his tail tucked repentantly. It's more than hilarious, and I forgot about my initial discomfort. Then it's just pure bliss. My body eases into the new surroundings, allowing me to relax, and it's as if all my aching muscles released a collective sigh of relief. This is wonderful. I groan, taking in the warmth and the floral aroma permeating the air. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. The wolf responds awkwardly, still very much diverting his gaze, and despite being at odds, I decide to ease his stress. Come on, it's not like it's anything you haven't seen. I know, it's just... He cuts off, looking around in distress and sighing. I don't know. It felt wrong. You can leave if you like. I can fetch you once I'm done. I shrug, and the male looks at me, at first in shock, and then in deference. Oh, yes, perhaps that would be best. He reluctantly gets up and sluggishly approaches the door. If he tries to hide his sorrow, he does a poor job of it, as both his ears and tail are tucked, and I release an exasperated sigh. Do you want to leave? Do you want me to? Seriously, we're still doing this will he, won't he crap? I splay my arms in mild frustration, splashing some water around. You're angry with me. Of course I'm fucking angry. Furious would be the word I'd use. But at the same time, we don't need to act like we just met. That's just insulting. I didn't mean to insult. I meant for both of us. I cut him off yet again, taking a deep breath and trying to come across as genuine as I possibly could, given the circumstances. You might be a dickhead, but we did things together, and we do find each other attractive. Why pretend like the last 2 weeks didn't happen? I just don't know what to do. This is all very new to me. Not leaving me alone in the shithole would be a fine start. I roll my eyes. But, since we can't have that, I'd at least act natural around each other in those last few moments together. The wolf nods and returns to the bed while I splay myself in the water. As I rest against the top of the tub, a sharp pain shoots down my spine, and I groan. Fuck, my back is killing me. I issue a strained complaint while trying to rub my shoulder out. Seeing this, the wolf perks up and without any hesitation steps forward with a soft smile. Would you like me to give you a massage? He mutters awkwardly, quickly realizing how it sounded and correcting himself. As a tit for tat, of course. You gave me one, after all. At first, I'm taken aback by the proposal and almost refuse, only to realize that despite my anger, my body could really use a rub-down. It's really a win-win. Sure, that sounds nice. I can see through a nod. A ploy or not, what have I got to lose? He's not going to super abandon me now, is he? And this way, at least, I'm getting a massage out of this. He takes off his shoulder and pauldron, which, to be fair, I was surprised he was still carrying around. I took the first moment possible to ditch my burden. I guess it shows how self-disciplined he really is. The wolf takes a slow U-bend around the bath and places himself behind me. I lean forward in anticipation of his paws making contact. His touch is firm but measured as he applies pressure where needed and kneads my muscles like a stubborn sourdough. Damn, this feels good. I moan, and I can hear I've drawn happy taps of his tail at the compliment. He continues working on my back, slowly softening the tensed tendons, and I feel at least a week younger, which in my case is nearly half of my lifespan. Deciding to carry on with my indulgence, I look towards the copper pot steaming at the brazier and bob my head towards the wolf. Would you pass me a cup of that tea or whatever she called it? Tisane. He corrects me while fetching a mug and filling it up with a hot beverage. Tea would involve actual tea, even I know that. Imagine that, a knowledgeable savage! I flash my brows coyly as he passes me the drink, and a sharp pinch to my upper trapezoid causes me to yelp. Oof, okay, point taken. I laugh, taking a conciliatorial sip of the Tisane. It has a curious flavor to it. There's a hint of sweetness from the hyacinth, but above all, it tastes like a thin vegetable stock with a slight spice to it. It is pretty good and complements the bathing experience a ton, especially accompanied by the now resumed massage. Ranok hits the spot every time, like a marksman honing in on a target, striking each strained muscle with great precision. You sure know what you're doing. Your skin bruised a little. He mutters with worry, trailing stinging marks left by the backpack, but I dismiss him with a wave of my hand. It's nothing. It'll heal. I've been stabbed, remember? I snort and the wolf murmurs uncomfortably. Yeah. My feet are blistered though. I would need a pair of proper shoes. We can look for those at the market tomorrow. I'll make sure you have everything you need before... Let's not ruin the moment. I cut him off despite the kind offer. Okay. I don't want to be reminded of tomorrow. We're here and now. I allow him to pamper me for some time, but eventually we change places. To my surprise, he's not too fussy about the temperature, though it's been a while. The water is still very much steaming. Once I dry myself off, and manage to dress up somewhat presentably, I decide to return the favor and ease his strained musculature. At first, he protests in embarrassment, but I'm having none of it. If it were up to me, we'd be the ones tumbling across the room and making a glorious ruckus for all to hear, but I would not do that to either of us. It would make this whole morbid affair even more painful come the morrow. Despite his earlier complaints, the wolf seems to enjoy himself quite a bit, with his fur soaking up all the perfumed water and making him smell fairly pleasant. Ugh, if any of the wolves back home ever found out. Oh hush, I can see you're enjoying it. That's what I mean. If any of the wolves found out, I'd be the next one Verissa brings a dress. I snort on his little joke, and splash some water teasingly in his muzzle, causing him to sneeze. At first I continue to rub his muscles calmly and collectively, but it quickly becomes self-serving. It might be the last time I get to feel him up, so I let my hands wander wherever they may, and the wolf loves it. I'm really sorry. He speaks up with solemn voice and looks back towards the window. I know you don't want to believe it nor hear it, but I am. I know. I can see through a deep sigh. I'm more angry with the circumstance than with you. I still don't agree with your logic, but I also won't be forcing your paw. I'm no Tano. No, you aren't. You're much more mature than he ever was. The wolf smiles softly, placing his paw on top of my hand and stopping the massage for a brief moment. Still, it's Tano we're talking about. The bar wasn't set high. You're childish enough at times. And he ruins the moment in a clumsy attempt at levity, forcing me to give him a stern look. It's not funny, not for me. You made a promise. Look, I wasn't planning on just abandoning you, alright? He splays his paws in protest, splattering some of the water. You didn't even let me tell you the whole plan. Plan? I scoff, taking a begrudging sip of the tisane. What's the plan here exactly? I just want you out of harm's way, that's all. The turmoil in Turnin is precisely something I don't want you involved in. But once things calm down and this whole hell mess is resolved, one way or another, I do intend to undertake those travels I told you about. Despite a slight shift in his tone, the wolf struggles to sound sincere, his body language betraying the actual depth of his own doubt. His ears, for one, are splayed back ever so slightly, and the tail remains motionless, even at the mentioned prospects of fulfilling his puphood dreams. Hollow words meant as an encouragement, as the future he presents is one he doesn't quite believe himself. I would have come back for you. He insists, sensing the distrust, and I nod softly. I know. I concede, resuming the massage. That part was never in question. Of that, I am certain. What I am not certain of is that you would be able to. Look, here in Strandbard, you will be safe and thriving. We could do all the things we promised ourselves if you just stay here, because we cannot do them if you're dead. You underestimate me. My voice takes on a more assertive tone, and I squeeze harder at his bicep, but the wolf only rolls his eyes. And you're overestimating yourself. You're a naive, helpless halfling, neither a pup nor a man. You can't even swing a sword. So, the world isn't made only of burly warriors like you. You are a walking target in a forest full of trained killers. So are you. I splash some water right in his muzzle, causing him to blink uncomfortably. You talk about me as if I'm a murder waiting to happen, but you aren't exactly invincible yourself. Your father was nearly taken out with a javelin. All it takes is a well-aimed arrow, so the size and combat prowess don't really matter much, do they? You have an answer for everything, don't you? He smacks his lips impatiently and shifts away in the tub, resting his paw against his knees. He's retracting like he usually does when a conversation isn't going his way. Ranok always did that with Farissa, and he did it with me on a few occasions, so I'm having none of it. Why can't you understand that you would be safer here than in Turnin? I can't guarantee your safety anymore. Here, you can live in comfort until I return. If you return. And even so, how long would that take? A year? I propose mockingly, and the wolf shrugs. Maybe. It very well could. But this is the best option we have. I cannot risk your life on a whim. But you aren't risking it. If you truly believe that I am not your property, then you have to concede that I have the right to make my own decisions, that I have my own agency here. Bringing you back to Turnin would be a mistake. Then it's my own mistake to make. I reiterate, kneeling beside him and meeting his determined expression with equal zeal. You don't know the future. You cannot be certain of your own, let alone dictate mine. And if you want to talk about mistakes, leaving me here would be more idiotic than bringing me back. And why is that? Because you're playing right into Aldris's paw. I don't know if she pretends to be dumb or simply is dumb, but us doing what she accused you of wouldn't hurt her case, but rather strengthen it. My assessment catches him by surprise and his ears shoot up. You were right. My position is enormously privileged. I've seen the wolves who were banished here for lesser crimes. I heard the price outer packs have paid for my trespass. Me being let go scot-free would be an insult to all and would cause resentment and all sorts of conspiracies. I splay my hands for emphasis and he sits back, resting against the tub and slightly more relaxed. He narrows his eyes and listens to me intently. Such as? The main one, that your father was in on this and that I was some sort of political stunt people are yet to understand. You must see that the only way to save your father's seat is transparency. If you start muddling and omitting stuff, this will give Aldris everything she needs to steer the Howl her way. The wolf rubs his chin uncomfortably, trailing his paw all the way back to the back of his head and sighs. If I brought you back, she would use you against us. How? I ask impatiently. She can't question me. I'm a dumb ape, remember? And it's not like my disappearance would disprove my existence in the first place. Me coming back not only shows that you're a wolf of honor, but also demonstrates that none of us have anything to hide. Me staying here not only suggests that there was more to my story than there really is, but also that all of you were involved in a cover-up. There's a war coming. I know. I was there. I heard what happened. I sigh in frustration at his patronizing treatment. Do you really think I could sit here waiting for news of the horrors taking place scant 4 days away? That if I don't go mad from the fear for your safety, I wouldn't decide to return on my own accord? Whatever happens to you, I don't want you to be alone. I don't want to be alone. Caelan. His tone softens, and hearing him utter my name in such a loving manner causes butterflies in my stomach. He's taken aback by my words, and I reach out into the water, holding his paw. I really don't want to stay here, and it's clear he doesn't want to leave me here either. This is my life, a new life that I was given. I won't let anyone, even you, sideline me. My place is at your side. You know this. Deep inside, you know that we're meant to walk this path together. This is exactly the reason why I didn't want to tell you anything until we got here. He sighs heavily, retracting his paw. You have a way with words that can make complete madness sound logical. It was all pup talk. Why can't you see this? The wolf hangs his head in defeat. Think of me what you must, but I cannot willingly take you back, knowing what price you could pay. I look at him with mild hurt in my eyes. I don't believe for 1 second that he truly dismisses all this fate talk from before. My anger, although subdued, is still lingering between the layers of anguish and betrayal. Look, even if I agreed with everything you said, even if I wanted to, what possible reason could I have to take you back when I was expressly commanded by my father and Vithrir to leave you here? Which proves my point. Aldris wasn't just her old bitchy self. She was very much onto their scheme. Your father and his friend are their own undoing. Maybe, but it's not my place to question the chief, nor the naysay of his advisor of many years. With them both wanting you gone, not even Varys's hocus pocus could save your skin. He states with a slight hint of desperation in his voice and returns to scrubbing his fur, signaling that the conversation lasted as long as it possibly could. He's struggling with this whole mess, almost as much as I do. And although I'm still cross with him, I'm not discouraged nor bitter. His mind might seem ultimately made up, but it's not by him alone, as I initially thought, but at the behest of others. Instead of pushing the issue further, I need to find more proof that the logic behind this idea is flawed and find some reason to revert this course. And in the end, if I'm unable to change his mind, there's no real point in digging my heels and picking up a fight if we are to part ways tomorrow. I'd rather we do so amicably, both leaving on good terms, than have either of us harbor resentment. To his surprise, I dunk my hands into the water and pick up the washcloth, wringing it of excess moisture and helping to groom his fur in hard-to-reach spots. He's confused at first, but I hear the water swirling slightly with a gentle movement of the submerged tail. Thank you. You're welcome, Fluff. I boop his nose with a gentle smile, drawing a reluctant chuckle from the male. Ranok takes as much time soaking as I did. Once he's done, I help him dry his fur. Yes, he's awkward and flustered about it, but again, nothing I didn't see nor have done before. He takes a sharp inhale as I brush the towel against his groin and stifle a soft moan as I skim over the nether regions. Truthfully, this feels more like a payback for all the teasing I had to suffer than anything remotely gratifying, but I'd lie if I insisted that no part of me enjoyed it on some sort of level. And so does he, it would seem. I came to check if you need any more hot water. Sylph cuts off, opening the door and effectively catching me fondling the wolf who stands triumphantly splayed with his tongue dangling out. Oh my, another one! Please forgive me. She yelps and jumps out, rushing down the corridor, giggling. Ranok already on the other side of the room, mortified, while I share in the girl's merriment. Don't worry, seems this sort of thing is a norm around here. I chuckle, inviting him to return and allow me to finish the task at hand. Once he's all dried to the best of my abilities, I stretch out lazily and yawn. This was very relaxing. I comment, leaving up my makeshift shoes next to the brazier to dry up, as that way it'll be easier to remove all the muck. For the time being, I'll have to be barefoot. Yeah, surprisingly, I don't take many plunge baths. The wolf admits with a shrug as he pulls up his pants. I help him with his gabardine and belt, and once he's ready, we proceed to leave for dinner. When we come back down, the room is even livelier and more animated than before. The number of guests has doubled at the very least, with the addition of quite a few colorful characters, and by that I do not mean their coats. At the bar, a group of mercenaries, for the lack of a better word, is enjoying their drinks and making merry, two massive boars carrying heavy, intricately decorated axes, and an equally big badger with a mace. If armed but not in uniform, they cannot be guards, and I doubt the city watch would allow bandits to walk around the town with weapons in hand. They must be muscle for hire. In that tune, I can see gambling continuing in the center table with cards and dice being enjoyed by at least a half a dozen and twice the number of spectators. This place got awfully crowded. What time would you say it is? 14th hour at the very least. So around 10 PM, I think to myself. I was told that the Broken Keg is quite popular among the lower class of the city. I croon, not entirely dismissive of the place. There's definitely a charm to this level of activity, even if the clientele is rougher around the edges. In truth, I could enjoy this, now that I finally picked up a tuned-out lute being strung by a small fox splayed comfortably near the window, with his hind paws on the table. He's playing a rather pleasant tune, despite the loud conversations, laughter, and shouting completely overwhelming it. In the far corner, I notice a cute athletic hyena in a very revealing tribal outfit, talking some business over with a wolf and a husky. It almost looks as if they're flirting, with a towering male smirking every now and then between each other, and their tails giving electrified flicks whenever the hyena stretches or giggles. I have to admit that he's quite seductive, and I take note of some of his more subtle ways of provoking his companions. What are you looking at? Nothing. I shake my head, not really wanting to draw attention to this potential intricate threesome in the making. Was just admiring the scenery. Yeah, it's a lot to take in. Ranok sounds troubled, and I smile. I forget that to him, it's a brand new experience as well. The last time he was here, he was just a pup, and I doubt they took him into such a seedy place. I rub his arm encouragingly, only to pull back reminded of our ongoing argument. As I turn my head away, I notice Sif whispering something to the innkeep, who smiles gleefully and rubs his paws together. It doesn't take long for the pudgy male to trot our way. Ah, Master Wolf, I hope the bath was to your liking. Yes, now eat. Ah, of course, of course. The tiger nods eagerly and leads us towards a table where the music comes from. Right, I told you that you could only play 4 songs, and then you would have to order something or fuck off. He glances over the unfolded hat only to notice 2 small copper coins. I don't see an order coming up, so beat it! A slap of the napkin causes the fox to jump up to his feet in a noticeable annoyance. I didn't get to finish my third one. I don't care. Go earn your coins somewhere else. I've got a business to run. And you wonder why your establishment lacks refinement if you chase away all the entertainment? Refinement doesn't pay the bills, kid. Well, filling those tables does, and trust me, having them full is mighty more entertaining than your torturous harping. I feel slightly awkward and uncomfortable having the fox chased away, but the innkeep doesn't leave much time for us to dwell on it. Here you go, good sirs. Let me tidy up. The chubby male flutters his napkin across the table, as if it were doing anything. I'll come back in a moment with your meals and drink. Ale, stout, or lager? Ale. With the table clean, we take our seats, and I sullenly follow the fox with my eyes, feeling guilt growing in my stomach the closer to the door he gets. As he's about to pass the pending menage a trois, he's quickly hooked in by the muscly arm of the husky. At first, the fox is taken aback, but with a few seductive words cause him to brighten up and join the conversation with the remaining two members of his sensual troupe. What is going on there, I wonder? Seriously, what are you looking at? I blink, noticing Ranok's confused gaze darting between me and the wider room. My face flushes and I decide to shake my head yet again. I'm not going to discuss my flights of fancy in our current mood. It's inappropriate. It's nothing, just general curiosity. And there it is. The wolf traces his hand across the hyena's torso, causing the petite male to shudder with anticipation to the utter delight of the husky and his tightly embraced bard. Fuck me, someone's gonna have a fun, busy night. I pull on my neckline. The room has gotten mighty hot all of a sudden. Our plates land in front of us with a wooden clunk, while the same waitress that took us upstairs brings our overflowing mugs with a brimming, knowing smile. Here you go, boys. You must be famished. Now, if you need anything, just call, okay? She says in a chirpy tune, and we nod it with gratitude. The food doesn't look like much, but it smells incredible. It's a thick stew with strands of beef sinews intermingling with the carrots and peas and onions in dark, rich gravy. It's all very much overcooked, causing every spoonful to melt in my mouth. A hearty welcome meal after a whole day of this drudgery. Not bad. Ranok nods approvingly after taking a mouthful, followed by a deep gulp. The stew or the ale? Both. He states with satisfaction. I jitter slightly at the rambunctious explosion of cheers and laughter behind us. One of the gambling tables just witnessed an impressive comeback, and the players as well as the spectators celebrate the winner. Seems safe. The wolf mutters reassuringly, and I grimace at his tortured point. No need for the pitch if the sale has already been made. I grumble, taking a prolonged gulp from my mug. I'm just saying, it's lively and friendly. Too friendly. I snicker absent-mindedly, seeing the discreet touches devolve into shameless groping. The wolf and the hyena go fully at it, with no one paying them any mind, while the husky simply chats the bard some more. I'm not sure if the fox is really into it, or if he's fishing for coin, but theirs is a more restrained courtship. Oh, that. Ranok turns his head and finally hones in on my point of interest, causing me to blush. I now see why your attentions are so divided. Can't say I blame you. He shrugs, returning to his meal. Seems quite fun. The husky got the short end of it, though. Seriously, Ranok. Don't you Ranok me. You're the one gawking at the public makeout session. The wolf smirks and his happy tail draws from me a reluctant chuckle. I guess this place isn't all that bad. See? You could even entertain yourself while you stay here. He proposes coyly, finding what appears to be a rib in the stew and holding it up. Oh, and you'd be fine with that? Sure. He shrugs, gnawing on whatever meat is still attached to the bone. I mean, you made it perfectly clear that your choices are no longer my concern. I sigh in annoyance. Although I can sense the air of levity at his jabs, I do not find this appropriate. It's too soon, and I still don't think he's treating my situation seriously enough. I don't want to stay here, other kin orgies or not. He chokes on my remark, coughing loudly and patting his chest, followed by a dousing share of ale. What? I shrug innocently. Two can play at this game. Misinterpreting the low in our spirited exchange, the barkeep joins us to ask how the meal goes. Everything to your satisfaction? Yes, yes. Anything else I can do for you, master? Not now. Leave. Ranok sneers, putting down the now cleaned-out rib. The barkeep only smiles goofily and returns to his counter, while the wolf waits for some distance between us to resume our conversation. I really need you to work with me here. Our situation has gotten incredibly dangerous, not just for us, but for everyone involved. Yes, I understand that, but I told you what I think of this ludicrous plan of yours. It not only won't work, but it will also backfire spectacularly, and then, no matter what you do, you'll put everyone in danger. That's just your speculation. I can't say I fault your logic. Some of your points are valid, but it does seem to come from a desire to stay at my side. It's selfish. I should know, because if I acted upon my own selfish impulses, I'd take you back regardless of consequences. But I am not selfish, and neither are you. This isn't about selfishness. I slam my fist into the table, drawing the wolf's wary gaze. He looks at me with slight pity, which only aggravates me further. Of course it is. This is easy for you to say. You're not the one who will be stuck alone in an unfamiliar place with nothing but anxieties. Easy, is it? The wolf narrows his eyes. You make this situation all about yourself. Of course I am. I'm the one being left here. Do you really think that at no point I do not regard the situation we found ourselves in? He throws in harshly with hurt on display in a twisted muzzle. When I found you, I thought it would just be a matter of sheltering you until you got well, but then everything got complicated, with the tribe, the politics, and... us. The last part causes him to wince slightly. I came to terms with things that are beyond my control. Why can't you? Because they are in our control, and I'm not giving up on us. In a perfect world, we wouldn't have wars and banishment to worry about, just endless bliss in each other's company. But unfortunately, not all of us can be stuck in a pipe dream. You don't have to worry about any of those things. You're young, you barely came of age. You very much could spend your life in endless bliss if you truly wanted to. It's your desperations talking. I watch as the wolf shrugs, reaching for the mug and taking a deep chug. Once he places it back onto the table, he gives me a more collected look, still somewhat remorseful, yet betraying some newfound determination. You know that I would never run away from my responsibilities, and I know you aren't that selfish to expect it of me. You, just as much as I, would never be able to live with the knowledge that you left others behind. You're selfless and thoughtful. You've proven it beyond any doubt. Don't let despair twist your noble nature. That's not fair. I don't want to have any more of this conversation. You might think of me what you will, but I don't want my opinion of you diminished. Your opinion of me? I jolt to my feet in clear outrage of his comment, drawing some attention to our table. Ranok only shakes his head and hoists up his paws in defeat. Caelan, please don't make a scene. He whispers, bidding me to return to my seat. There aren't many establishments left to choose from, and if you're so worried about having to stay in unfamiliar places, making yourself a fool in your potential new home isn't a good idea. I sit down reluctantly, my solemn gaze diverting from his muzzle. There's not much else that I could say to change his mind, and in the end, a small part of me begins to understand that he might be right. It isn't fair, but insisting on it like a petulant child won't change the harsh reality. This foreign town with its strange people will be my home for the foreseeable future, and with that realization, I simply fall silent. I don't even eat anymore. I've lost my appetite anyway. I just sit there, locking my gaze with the large window opening on the streets beyond, thinking of Turnen and the village. Everyone's probably at the feast now, making merry, glad to be rid of that one thing that set their lives out of a well-worn routine. Whatever false sense of triumph I had during the bath is now completely gone. Once Ranok's done with his food, we simply return to our room in silence. And that's where I'm going to leave it for today. So, yeah, it kind of seems like Ranok is basically going to stick to his guns, kind of, and that Caelan's going to have to suck it up and, you know, accept the fact that he's going to be dumped in Strandbard, and that there's no way of convincing Ranok that this whole plan is basically dumb, and that there's, you know, flaws in it. But, I mean, there is flaws. Aldris will probably use this as proof that Varrock and Vitrir and maybe even Ranok had something planned. And that's going to be very bad for the three of them. Whether or not this ends up, you know, with Ranok being the new chief or somebody else being the new chief or something, we'll find out. If it happens, though. And, well, it's kind of weird because I was expecting Ranok to have like a slightly different worldview at arriving at Strandbard, but I guess it's literally like the first night, so you can't really expect any real change yet. So, yeah. And by worldview, I mean like that he would see that there is a lot more than just his village that he has to worry about. Because in the previous episode, he had a conversation with well, not a conversation, he barely chimed in. But he basically saw that the war didn't just hurt the wolves, it also hurt the people around the forest, it hurt other people that weren't even involved in the war. And, like, actions have consequences, I guess. But I guess that sort of turned the opposite way. Where it's like, oh, if I decide to keep Caelan, then it's going to be very bad for everyone. So, I think he was getting the wrong message there. But yeah. Anywho, I also think that he's listening too much to his father. And to Vitrir. And he kind of, you know, has to learn to think for himself. Because that's kind of one of Ranok's weaknesses. Where he kind of always just does what he's told and that's it. And he never really learned critical thinking skills. Even though he chastises Caelan for not having them, he kind of didn't learn them himself. He's very still in his bubble. The bubble of being in the village, the bubble of living in privilege, and even though he made his own house and made his own furniture, he's still very much a little prince, you know, wolf. It's always what daddy says, it's always what the other daddy says, it's always what somebody tells you to do. Fall in line, do this, this, and that. Don't question, you know, orders, etc., etc. But yeah, and even the whole privilege thing, regardless of the fact that you moved out, you're still getting preferential treatment from your friends and from the rest of the village, even if the village doesn't like it. They know that if you say no to Ranok, then it's like saying no to Varrock, and that's bad. Anyways, so what do you guys think so far of what's going on? What are your opinions of the story? And do you think that Ranok will go through with, you know, leaving Caelan, despite the fact that he really much sounds that he, you know, is going to? And do you agree with it, or do you disagree with it? So, you know, comments, write it down. And I'm starting to see some people that are disliking Ranok, so it's pretty common, I guess, now that, you know, people are disliking the wolf, which is a valid, you know, thing to happen, because he is acting a little strange. But yeah. So anyways, thank you all for watching / listening. If you would like to play Far Beyond the World yourself and see how this update concludes, then you can find it over on itch. You can find a direct link to the itch page from the creator's Twitter page, which I will link down in the description, as well as the Patreon if you would like to support the project. And I guess that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.